I'm a nurse at a palliative care unit in an old hospital. If you're a nurse at one of these units like me or know a nurse, please read until the end. I could use your help. Throughout my years working at this hospital, I've seen a lot, especially being in a palliative care unit. You see a lot of things other people wish they wouldn't. For some of us, at some point, we just have to accept things as they are. The unit I work in has 9 beds in 9 different bedrooms, all spread along a long corridor. At the start of the corridor is the lift, and, coming out of it, you'd find the cleaning room on your right, where we keep all the cleaning equipment and products, and the nurse's room on your left, along with the entrance through the stairs. Because of the building and patient safety, and so we can access the other floors easily if in need, the administration forbade us from locking the stairs doors. This isn't ideal, because some of our patients, in their delusions, can go across our room's door unnoticed and will be a danger to themselves, so we always keep the doors closed by tying a bedsheet around the door handles to keep them together. This is important, so you know why what comes next started out so strange. The nurse's room is where we'll spend most of the night shifts doing all kinds of activities, including resting and actually sleeping. Usually, late at night, my routine would include checking on all our patients, checking on all the doors and windows to make sure they are all locked properly, checking on the doors to the stairs, and then spend most of the night checking patient files. This night in particular, I had finished with my rounds and was checking on all the cameras. When my nursing auxiliary came into the nurse's room, she asked me if anything else was needed or if she was okay to sleep for a while. I told her she was fine to go to sleep, so she took her shoes off, laid down with her back to the room and me, facing the wall, and went to sleep. I was reading a new patient's file, who was coming into our unit soon, to know what to expect and how to behave around him, when I started hearing footsteps walking up and down the unit's corridor. At first I ignored them, thinking I was just tired, and that my ears were playing tricks on me. It wouldn't be the first time. As they persisted though, I started wondering what was going on. I took another look at the cameras, but each and every one of the bedroom and corridor feeds seemed completely normal. The steps, though, kept coming all the way to the nurse's room, stopping about 2 steps away from showing at my door, then turning around and walking back all the way to the opposite end of the corridor. I waited to see if anything changed, but when it didn't, I stood up to go check. That's when one of our patients, the one in room number 7, started calling us frantically. My auxiliary nurse was still asleep, so I walked carefully out of the room, peeked out of the room and looked around. There was nothing there, and the footsteps had stopped, so I rushed to the patient's room. When I got there, he was shouting frantically, huddling against the bed's headboard with what seemed like renewed energy, shouting at me to tell the man in the top hat sitting on the chair in the room to go away and leave him be. Usually, with patients like these in this state of stress, we just go along with their delusions to calm them down. If there are nurses watching, which I hope there are, you'll know what I mean. In this case, with him screaming in the room, I turned towards the chair and started talking to this imaginary man in a top hat, telling him he needed to go, that the visiting hours were done and that he needed to leave right now or we'd have to call security. After this, the patient calmed down, thanked me effusively for sending the man away, and lay back down to rest. I went back to the nurse's room and back to studying the new patient. As I walked back in, my heart stopped. All I felt was panic gripping my heart inside me. As I stood there, not knowing what to do and looking at the surveillance cameras, there was a big shadow, standing right in the middle of the frame of the camera recording the end of the corridor, right in front of the bedroom I had just been in. I took one step back and leaned backward to check if I could see anything there, and there was nothing. I gave the cameras another quick glance, and the shadow was still there, standing terrifyingly still in front of this patient's bedroom door. This time, though, when I turned to look directly at the corridor again, this thing was there. For a moment, it felt like everything froze in place, and I just stood there, looking at it like a fool. Then, slowly, it turned towards me, a pair of strange, dark red eyes showing. It stood like that for a bit, screeched at me and flew into the patient's bedroom, slamming the door behind it. My auxiliary nurse jumped awake at the slam of the door and started frantically asking me what was going on. I was out of breath by now. I told her what I had just seen and what had just happened, and she couldn't believe me. I asked her to come with me to the patient's bedroom, and she agreed, starting to become curious. We walked slowly through the corridor, passing every door carefully. I was afraid that anything would come flying at us. When we got to the bedroom this thing flew into, I pushed the door without going in, to check for any kind of danger, and immediately felt a breath of freezing air hit me in the face. The air con was on in every room and set to 23 degrees, so this was not normal. Nothing came flying at us, like I was afraid would happen, but there, right by the patient's bed, there was this shadow. I could tell it was a man, tall and strong with a top hat over his head. I asked my auxiliary nurse if she could see him, not expecting a no. However, that's what I got. She couldn't see anything standing there, and definitely not as clear as I could. Slowly, the shadow turned towards me again. This time, it didn't scream. This time, it slowly dissipated. Immediately, I calmed down. Not only could I not see it anymore, I also couldn't feel it. This sense of calm came over me and the patient seemed okay, so we left the room and went back to the nurse's room. My colleague went back to sleep, but I didn't rest until I checked the rest of the unit to make sure everyone was safe. After that, I couldn't help but stare at the cameras every minute for the rest of the night. Eventually, our shift was over and would become the shift with the most intense experience I ever had. The next day, when nighttime came and I did all my rounds, I went inside room 7 to check on the patient. When I came closer to him, I realized he had passed away. This was my first experience with the shadow man in the top hat, but it wasn't the last and it's still ongoing. I'm the only one who can see him around the unit, which freaks everyone out. Every single time I see him, it's under the same circumstances. I walk into a patient's room and there's his shadow at the feet of their bed. I wait for a little while, until he turns to me and dissipates. 1 or 2 days later, the patient passes away. This is a real story and it's something I have to live with almost every day now. I'm not sure if this thing is killing people or announcing their deaths, but if you are a nurse in a similar unit or know someone who is, please share this with them and comment what you know about it. I need to know what this is, how to deal with it, and if anyone else has experienced the same as me, even if it's a different looking entity. I can keep you updated on here, if people are engaging and want to know more. Let me know if you want any updates, and I'll make sure to bring them. I recently moved into a new apartment, and things have taken a really unsettling turn. I thought I'd share my experience with you all, because I'm honestly not sure what to do next. When I first moved in, everything seemed normal. The place was clean, well lit, and in a good neighborhood. But a few nights ago, while I was unpacking some boxes in the living room, I noticed a small trapdoor in the corner of the closet. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to open it up. Inside, I found a dusty box labeled Home Videos. Assuming they were just old VHS tapes left behind by the previous tenant, I brushed off the dirt and decided to take a look. I mean, who doesn't love a bit of nostalgia, right? The first tape I popped into my old VCR was labeled Birthday Party 1998. The video quality was grainy, but I could clearly see kids playing in a backyard, having a blast. I assumed it was just a regular birthday party until the camera panned over to a figure standing in the shadows. It was a tall, slender person in a tattered, black cloak. They were just standing there, watching the kids play. I felt a shiver down my spine, but I chalked it up to a prank or someone in a weird costume. The second tape was labeled Vacation Memories 2002. The video showed a family laughing and enjoying themselves at the beach. But then, towards the end of the video, the camera suddenly turned towards the ocean. I could barely make out a figure in the distance, standing ankle deep in the water. It was the same cloaked person. I was starting to feel genuinely creeped out. I decided to watch one more tape before calling it a night. This one was labeled Anniversary Dinner 2007. It showed a couple having a candlelit dinner in a fancy restaurant. But midway through, the camera seemed to glitch, and the cloaked figure appeared right beside their table. The couple didn't react at all, as if they couldn't see the figure. My heart raced, and I turned off the VCR, feeling a knot of unease in my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously off about those tapes. I didn't sleep well that night, and the next morning, I decided to do some research on the apartment's history. It turns out, there had been a series of unsolved disappearances and strange occurrences linked to my building over the years. I reached out to the previous tenant, hoping to get some answers. But when I mentioned the tapes, they seemed genuinely surprised. They claimed to have no knowledge of them and assured me that they had thoroughly cleaned out the apartment before I moved in. I'm not sure what to make of all this. Are the tapes some kind of sick joke? Or is there something more sinister going on? I've been feeling a constant sense of being watched, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm not alone in my apartment. I'm planning to investigate further, but I wanted to share my experience with you all first. If anyone has any advice or similar experiences, please let me know.